Hello, I'm back. I thought I'd talk to you this time about shutter speed. So there's a bit of a kind of triangle in photography, which is depth of field, which we talked about in episode 1, and ISO, which I'll talk about at some point, but is the hard one for me anyway. And then the third thing is shutter speed, and that's really important if you're trying to freeze action. You know, great if you're taking photographs of kids or animals, anything that's moving, basically, shutter speed becomes important. And it's also really important if you want to do the opposite. So if you want to slow things down. So those really lovely long exposure photographs that you see, you know, quite often in landscape photography, rivers, that kind of thing is a classic for, excuse the noise in the background, that's my son. Is a classic for kind of long exposure photography. So I thought I would just really quickly run you through how you handle changing your shutter speed, both on your SLR and also with a little way of doing it on your iPhone. I think iPhone 7s and above, the ones that have got live mode, are the ones that you can do something akin to changing a bit of shutter speed. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing to do is switch your camera to shutter speed priority. So on a Canon, that's actually TV, which stands for time value, and on I think Sony's and Nikon's it'll be an S, I think, for shutter. So switch to shutter speed priority. So shutter speed works a bit like this. It's basically a time thing. Okay, so here we're looking at my shutter speed, which is 1/125th, right? Okay, so slowing the shutter speed down, you get really slow. This starts to get into seconds. Okay, this is like a shutter speed of a second when it's got the little, what looks like a speech mark or an inch sign after it. Okay, this goes all the way to 30 seconds on here. So something that's got a really slow shutter speed, it's going to be difficult to say, basically means imagine a really long blink, you know, really slow blink. It means that the camera is, you know, the lens is open for a long time, and that basically means that you're going to end up with lots of light coming in, and it's a really nice way of slowing motion down. So if you wanted to take a photograph of a river, for example, but with that nice kind of blurry effect, then a slow shutter speed is the way to do that. Obviously, what you're playing off against that is how much light the camera is letting in. The flip side is fast. And a rule of thumb is, if you've got an SLR, whatever lens you've got on, so I've got a 135mm lens on here at the moment. I know that because it says 135 on it. It's a nice long lens. It's probably my favourite lens, actually, just as a geeky aside. What you want to do is always have a shutter speed that is at least equivalent to the length, if you like, the length of your lens. So I'd want at least 1/160, a bit longer, because there isn't a 135, there's a 125, to make sure that the image is sharp. But realistically, that's still going to be quite slow. So as a general rule of thumb, I wouldn't shoot kids moving in bright sunlight at anything less than probably 1/250th of a second, something like that. And again, it all depends on what the motion looks like, but you want to go as fast as you can if you want to really freeze that action, and you want to go as slow as you can without blowing the light out, blowing the highlights, basically, if you want to slow something down. So hopefully that helps you navigate the back of the camera. If you put it into shutter priority, TV or S mode, what that basically means is that the camera itself will decide what your depth of field is. And another good tip is make sure that your ISO is on auto at the moment. So if it isn't already, pop it onto auto. So those other two parts of the triangle, the ISO and the aperture, are decided by the camera, and you can just concentrate on getting the shutter speed that you want. Okay, here's a quick how to use shutter speed on an iPhone. So this will work if your iPhone has got live view, and you'll know that because your photographs might say live in the top corner, and when you go to your camera, you'll have this little yellow button at the top. So I'm going to show you very quickly how to capture images that enable you to have something that looks a bit like a slow shutter speed and a long exposure. So this is a photograph I've just taken of my bathroom tap. It's very exciting. Take your photograph on live view, and then when you've finished and you go back into your photos album, push up, and you'll find some effects buttons. It's this simple. Let's zoom in and scroll over to, again, ignore my nails, scroll over to the right and hit long exposure. Simple as that. And it turns your fast shutter speed into a slow one by combining all of the images it's taken on the live view, and so you get soft, a slow shutter speed, a nice long exposure. And my top tips are: try and balance your camera on something so you're not touching your camera when you press the shutter button. and also use the self-time mode. And if you're not sure where that is, if you've got it, it'll be this thing up here. Click it onto something like 3 seconds, like that. And that means that when you press the shutter button, you're not getting any camera shake because you're not physically touching the camera when it takes the images, and that'll get a really nice soft focus. Hope that helps. Okay, well, so there's a kind of my quick run through shutter speed. Have a bit of a play this week. I would love to see the kind of shots you're getting, and if that means maybe digging out your SLR from whichever drawer it's been buried into for a little while, and just having a bit of a play, getting off auto, turning that dial, switching it onto shutter speed priority TV or S, or getting your phone out and just having a bit of a play with the long exposure effects, and maybe thinking about some of the creative stuff that we talked about in the second little blog thing that I did, and even thinking about depth of field a little bit as well, and starting to piece these things together. And hopefully, I'm really hopeful anyway, that it just gives you something else to think about, something to play with, and occupy your brain with. I certainly am just loving the creativity that photography brings generally, but particularly at the moment, and I hope these are a little bit helpful. So I'm not sure what to do next, so let me know what's interesting, what's useful, and I will have a bit of a think, and I will say enjoy the sunshine, have a lovely Thursday, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Take care. Bye bye now.